stand by for action.
Thanks for joining me. My name is Dave Milner. I am the Unpleasant Blind Guy. Let's get started with a correction from last week. Now, last week I told you guys that looking at things, I felt as if we in the United States of America at this point are about where the Soviet Union was in 1914. Now, there are going to be some people, no one has corrected me yet on this one, but I wanted to get this myself. The Soviet Union did not exist in 1914. That was still Russia, and they were in a state of cultural and political flux. And that is what I wanted to get to and what I wanted to correct. Now, let's start with our first story. This is going to be our first and pretty much only story. It comes from Yahoo News via ABC's Good Morning America, and I know I'm going to get a bit of an eye roll when I begin reading this story from some of the audience, and what I'm going to ask you guys to do is to stick in with me through the end of the story, because there is a point to the story that I'm going to read, a point that I think has to be addressed among conservatives and among people from different parts of the country. So there's a reason for the story I'm going to do, and I'm really hoping that you guys will stick with me until the end. All right, headline for this is discrimination in Mississippi by DOT officers and judge. Now, this was put in by Russell Goldman for Good Morning America on the 28th. The ACLU has filed 2 complaints with Mississippi state officials claiming that a Sikh truck driver was harassed by traffic cops for possessing a religious talisman and then further humiliated by a county judge who referred to his turban as that rag. This is a disgrace and a clear infringement of religious rights, said Bear Atwood, a lawyer for the Mississippi office of the American Civil Liberties Union. He was treated disgracefully by the Department of Transportation. Then he came back to Mississippi for his court date and was treated very badly by a judge whose behavior was despicable. On January 16th, Jajit Singh, age 49, a long-haul truck driver from California on his way to pick up chickens for delivery to Texas, was pulled over for driving with a flat tire in Pike County, Mississippi. Officers at a weigh station operated by the Department of Transportation demanded that Singh turn over his kirpan, a 3-inch ceremonial blade carried by all Sikh men and frequently sewed into the waistband of their trousers, according to the ACLU. Contending wrongly that his kirpan was illegal, the DOT officer demanded that Mr. Singh turn it over. Mr. Singh tried to explain that he was a Sikh and that the kirpan was a sacred religious article. The ACL wrote this, by the way, in a letter of complaint to the Department of Transportation. They continue. In response, however, the officer laughed at him and mocked his religious beliefs. One officer declared that all Sikhs are depraved and terrorists, the ACLU said in its letter. DOT officers then arrested Singh for, quote, refusing to obey a command, unquote, when he would not turn over his kirpan to police, according to the ACLU. A state DOT spokesman confirmed Singh's arrest and his agency's receipt of the letter, but would not comment on the allegations directly, calling them a personnel matter. We just got the letter. We're looking into the allegations, said DOT spokesman Jared Ravencraft. This incident happened in January, and this is the first anyone has mentioned these types of allegations against our employees. Singh appeared in court on March the 26th when his lawyers said he was further demeaned by Pike County Judge Aubrey Rimes. Court officers told him he had to leave because he was wearing a turban and the judge wanted it removed. He was intimidated and horrified, said the ACLU's Atwood. Rimes allegedly called Singh's turban that rag and insisted he remove it or his name would be called last on the docket after everyone else in the courtroom had left. Singh refused to remove the turban and was called last. According to the ACLU, Singh pleaded guilty to the charge of refusing to obey a command, and paid a fine. Repeated messages left at the nursery Judge Rhimes owns and at his chambers were not returned. Pike County Administrator Andrew Alford referred ABC News to a letter from the U.S. Department of Justice agreeing to close an official federal investigation if Pike County revised its non-discrimination policy and implemented sensitivity training. The ACLU called the DOJ's letter a first step, but said action would have to be taken at the state level, both at the Department of Transportation and by Mississippi Judicial Commission. Darlene Ballard, executive director of the commission, which investigates ethics violations by state jurists, said it could not comment on a specific case or confirm if a complaint had been made until and unless the commission recommended sanctions to the state Supreme Court. All right, now, those who have listened to me enough know that I'm a conservative and I have libertarian leanings. So why am I talking about this story? Why is it significant? If you look through this, there's everything wrong with it. First of all, there are the civil rights issues. Since when is it a crime to, quote-unquote, fail to obey a command? To me, this is government overreach at the base level. Now, they either need to clarify this law or they need to change the name of it, because it sounds as if we the people are the servants of these Department of Transportation individuals. Now, let's get to the tidy patting of backs and coverage here. It seems that everyone who was in the wrong in this incident, everyone but Mr. Singh, is going to be covered. The Mississippi Commission that would be in charge of examining the judge's actions are basically going to do nothing. Nothing is going to happen to the DOT officers, and despite the work of the ACLU, I do not believe that Mr. Singh is going to get satisfaction. And then there's the other aspect of it. There is an ignorance out there, endemic in our society, sadly, that anyone who's wearing a turban is a Muslim and therefore a possible terrorist. Now, I can well understand people's nervousness about Islam. It's not as if the good Islamists that we're constantly being told exist have jumped up en masse and struck down the ones who are committing the violence. People are afraid, and they're afraid for a very good reason. If you look at the religion of Islam, civilized people around the world have good reason to be afraid. That said, we cannot afford the kind of ignorance that will confuse a Sikh for an Islamist. Yes, there is a difference. And in my opinion, this difference should be learned by everyone, but especially it should be learned by public officials who are going to have contacts with individuals. Now, the last bit. My guess is that when the left saw this story, you might want to cover your kids' ears, folks. They didn't need to have sex that night because they had a huge orgasm of political proportions. This is exactly the sort of thing that the left loves, because this allows them to cast people who are not in New York, Los Angeles, one of the cities on the coast, as ignorant, backwards, and because of that, in need of control by the left. This is a bad story all the way around. Bad for personal liberty in the United States of America, bad for Mr. Singh, and a bad reflection on our current state of government. Now, I was privileged to take part over certainly the past week in something that was called the Rolling Brawl. Now, this was achieved over several Blog Talk Radio programs hosted by some good conservatives with wide-ranging opinions, backgrounds, and varying beliefs. And one of the results came last night on a show by No Way 90. Is there no way out? And that result was we've had good conversation over this week about the way forward, what we can do to bring ourselves back to the stage of personal liberty where we once were, and that sort of thing. But No Way 90 pointed out something important. Talk is great, but we have to begin to take action. And I will put my own spin on it and say we have to take positive, nonviolent action. And one of the things that I intend to do is to take stories like this and put them in front of you to show you that this sort of thing is disgusting to conservatives as well as liberals. No one owns the outrage over what was done to Mr. Singh. The left will certainly try and claim this and certainly throw their own spin on it. This is the kind of disgusting government overreach which the elites have brought us to. And I'm not just talking about the Republican Party here or the Democratic Party. I'm talking about both parties. People, you're going to have to forget the parties. They're meaningless. It's all a dog and pony show. We are going to have to look at the issues ourselves and make up our own minds now, because we can't trust the leadership of the parties, nor can we trust most of the mainstream media. It's time that we moved on, a transition from what was in politics and media to what will be. And that's what gets me into my Awesome Americans segment this time. All right. Now, my Awesome Americans for this show are G-Ski Rocks, Reactionaries Speak, Dana Smearman, No Way 90, Stephen Vandergast, and many others who are part of this extraordinary group of people on Blog Talk Radio who put together the Rolling Brawl. And I'm going to throw in a few others. I'm going to throw in Small G Gay, who is not a part of this group, but who should be. Small G Gay is a patriot all his own, with a style all his own, and he does things all on his own to further the cause of personal liberty. Now, it's all of the people that are my Awesome Americans this show have their own programs on Blog Talk Radio. This is the new media beginning to speak out. Not the old 3-network, 1 or 2 cable news channels media. Not even the media that has come out on talk radio. These are people who I consider to be Awesome Americans because they're not being paid for what they're doing. Nobody gets any money for this. It's all about loving one's country and about speaking out for one's country. And it's about action. These people all do things in their own way to further the cause. They're positive, they're nonviolent, and they speak the truth, even if the truth isn't what you want to hear. We have a long way ahead of us, in my opinion, and we're going to need Awesome Americans like these to help us get through. And I'm going to add an honorary Awesome American because she isn't an American. I'm talking about the Red Fox blogger Kel, who also has a program on Blog Talk Radio. Kel is Canadian. And she made a statement in one of her shows that said it all, really, for me. It showed me that there are people in the West, not just in the United States of America, but in the West, who understand the danger that civilization is in from the encroachment of socialism and Islam. Kel said, I think Canada is the best nation, but I think the United States is the greatest nation. That showed a depth of understanding in such a encapsulated statement that I'm not sure I'm going to forget it. We have a long road ahead of us. I don't think anyone can deny it. I think we'd all like for everything to be resolved in the next election or two, but I also think we have to face the pure fact that it's not going to be. It's gone too far. But as long as we have Awesome Americans, even honorary Awesome Americans, people who understand that the time has come for positive action, we will make it. That's why I've said we've already won. Now, I have posted the genesis of the Rolling Brawl, all of these conservative talk shows, and all of our discussions and whatnot in them at UBG Contact, where I'm also going to post the story about Mr. Singh. I encourage everyone who has story ideas, awesome American ideas, or just wants to contact me with comments and questions to please do so at UBG Contact on Twitter. And I will be glad to do what I can to answer your questions and that sort of thing. All right, now before I close, I want to put my own spin on the end of the Rolling Brawl. No Way 90's Is There No Way Out program last night was pretty much the cap on the whole thing. And I didn't do this then, but I want to do it now, because I think this speaks to conservatives as they exist at this point. As you guys know, I'm often inspired by pop culture, and I love to use references from pop culture that may not necessarily have been put out by conservatives. It's nice if they are, but if they're not, in a way it's even nicer, because that way art can be made to serve the cause of personal liberty, even when the artist isn't necessarily for it. What I'm going to do is read from a bit of rather old pop culture. This is from the poem Ulysses by Alfred Lloyd Tennyson. Though much is taken, much abides. And though we are not now of that strength which in old days moved earth and heaven, that which we are, we are. One equal temper of heroic hearts, made weak by time and fate, but strong in will, to strive, to seek, to find, and not to yield. Thank you very much for listening, everyone. I appreciate all of you very much. Until next time, may your God go with you. Goodbye.